that we had last week with being selected as a Smart 21 city in the ICF 2017 Smart City program. The next step is that they identify the top 7 intelligent communities. And having been involved with the nomination, we started off not necessarily thinking our case was as strong this year as in previous years, but upon further investigation, it was quite strong. It's obviously been recognised. One of only 4 cities in Australia, the only South Australian council, I don't know if any others nominated, but the only South Australian council to make the top 21. So we've got our nose ahead of the pack again, but there's probably a few potentially snapping at our heels in the next few years. So we really need to take this opportunity and the benefit and value this can provide us seriously as a group and look to work hard to weave that intelligent community, smart city fabric across all areas of council and across everything we do. I'd like to congratulate Chris and anybody else out of his team who worked hard to put together the nomination, obviously. Very well put together, and as a result we're successful. So well done, Chris.
Yeah, excellent. That is well done. Thank you for that. I know the acting director is working on a smart city plan. He's going to bring that to us and challenge our thinking, and your input would be very helpful on that council level being on the board. And I do know that there's some people who work at a Southern Council who are a bit envious. I would say actually jealous, get even. Okay, there's been no more further verbal reports. We'll move on to petitions, and we have Mr. Jared Fish, I hope I pronounced that correctly, to come to present a petition on the removal of a gum tree. So that is you, sir, that stall there in the gallery. If you were able to come forward to one of the empty chairs up here and to present your petition, we greatly appreciate it. And for the purposes of our record keeping, could you please stand and state your name and address?
Yes, my name is Jared Fritsch, and I live next to number 5 Iona Street.
Your address, sir?
I beg pardon?
What is your address?
Number 5 Iona Street.
Oh, you were actually in number 5.
Yeah,
sorry, my mistake. And you have 5 minutes to present your petition to us, so please feel free to talk to us.
Well, just to say that I have a gum tree next to my property, which belongs to the Housing Trust, and this gum tree is inside the Housing Trust front door, and branches keep falling time to time for the past 4 years. And somebody's going to get very injured one day. Already missing people, branch of 80 kilos just fall from the top on people. And it belongs to the Housing Trust, so when we call the Housing Trust, they say they just trim it a bit. And that's it, because it's a protected tree, it's a significant tree. So, not had to touch it. But apparently we told that this is a significant tree, but it is not. It's a mistake, it's on the book by mistake, because it hasn't got the size. So we want to know who is going to be responsible when somebody gets killed or injured. My partner nearly got killed a few weeks ago by a bunch of missiles. I got a photo of it. And just missed. Children playing at tennis and everybody. And I think Trust don't want to take responsibility. And I don't know who. Does the council do? Who is in charge of doing something about this tree? It's damaging property, it's dropping things, it's lifting pipe, lifting fence. And so what do we do about it?
Sorry, I'm not answering your question because during our presentation it's not an appropriate time to have a discussion. You can present your case and the CEO will be back in touch with some of those answers to you in writing, so you've got a good record of those. But they're good questions and we'll provide you an answer. Is there anything further you'd like to add?
Well, just to follow up, when somebody gets hurt, who is going to pay? Who is going to be responsible for that? The trees is in the wrong places inside the Housing Trust property. It's not at the council property. And it's a terrible thing to live next to a thing like this. I'm not the only one. Everybody's the same. That's why we got a petition.
And you have the petition to present to us tonight?
What?
Did you have the petition to present to us tonight?
No, I haven't got it with me. I just gave it to the council.
Oh, okay. So we've got it on already somewhere, have we? Yeah, great. Thank you. Excellent. Right, well, please, if you just stay there, I might ask the elected members if they've got any questions of you. Elected members, do you have any of the petitioner? Councillor Harris.
I know the tree in particular, and unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, it's a fairly healthy tree apart from branches fallen. But down at number 7, could be 9, you've got that big huge one that's on our land. So my concern comes, am I supposed to be standing?
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you. Your rules, Councillor.
It's just a good angle to be asking a question. Sorry. So my concern comes with that one, and it's been there, I know it's been there over 20 years, so I don't know much longer than that. But the other one's about twice its size, different tree.
Yes.
But do you know if there's any problems with the other tree? I'm concerned with one tree at number 9 or 7.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. British, do you have an answer for that question at all?
Do you know if there's any other concerns about the bigger tree, which is 2 houses down?
The bigger tree further down is worse. But it's on the footpath of the council. They got housing trust next to it, and it's lifting the footpath. They repair the pipe every few weeks. They have to come and repair the pipe, which is broken by this big tree. There is a hole in the street, and the footpath is lifted up. People nearly fall over last week because the footpath of concrete is completely lifted. It's an absolute nightmare. Now it's reaching the other house on the other side of the road, you notice that, and the power line. But nobody do anything about it. They kept repairing the road all the time, and that's the problem.
Okay,
but it's not a country.
Okay, so that's an answer there. And Councillor Barnett, you have a question?
Mr. Bishop, I picked up on you stated that the size of the tree is not the size of a significant tree, even though it's on council's register of significant trees. And I noticed in the report that it would take a change to our development plan, apparently, to change any notion of a tree. But I'm just finding out, has somebody measured it like officially or unofficially?
Yeah, somebody measured it. It's not the right size. It's 2 meters 40 long. It's not the right size. It in the wrong place. A good expert come, arborist coming every few months, look at this tree and say it's fantastic. It's in good health, there's no problem. But the branch of 90, 100 kilo fall, missing people, it's just very lucky. And children playing at this. My grandson nearly got killed by one branch. I got photo here, we take photo. And he's lifting the footpath, he's lifting the fence, his roots go everywhere because he's thirsty. And they're just waiting for something to happen. And then they will come and cut branches. And
Thank you. Any further questions from elected members? No, that being the case, thank you, Mr. Bridge, for your presentation. If you could return to your seat in the gallery, thank you very much. And we'll now deal with the item as per the report before us on pages 3 and 4, item 7.1, with a recommendation that Council receives notice of petition from Mr. Gerard Bridge in relation to the removal of the gum tree located at 301 Iona Street, Broadview, and the petition is not attached to the agenda, but it has been presented. I understand it's got 7 or 9 petition signatures on it. Is that? Sorry, 9 signatories. Does anybody wish to move the recommendation that we have there? Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it.
Yeah, I'll move it, but I would like to ask a question because I think I know the answer about the registrar, but why is it on the registrar? Because I look at it and I don't think it's 3 metres. I've got to be careful what I say because I hate to see trees going. But so how does that comment fit into your thing?
Sure. Director.
Thanks for the question, and through the chair. Initially, significant trees when the legislation came in was 2 metres in terms of the circumference. At that point in time, about 2001, councils were offered the opportunity to then list trees that met that criteria in its development plan. So this tree is listed in our development plan. Then, sometime 5-ish years ago, legislation changed around the circumference of the tree and the distance from dwellings, which would mean under today's rules it wouldn't classify as a new significant tree, but because it's referenced in the development plan, it remains a significant tree until that development plan removes that reference.
And just to round out the question, we have that residential development plan on our list of things to do. What's the right time frame?
Through the Chair, we would be looking to commence the residential neighbourhoods development plan amendment in the latter half of this financial year. It's looking to tail on from the urban corridor zone matter. So looking at 2017 in terms of start, considerable body of work involved, but that would be a likely vehicle to look at the significant
The
process.
Yeah. Okay. Right, thank you. Anything further, Councillor Apps, as a mover?
No, I'd still move that we've received the report and that we'll look at it, but I'm keen personally to follow it up to what that next couple of steps are and where we go. But I'm quite happy to accept the report.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Barnett, I'm looking for a second, I saw it.
Yes, seconding it. And yes, I'd be interested in following up about our regulated trees and significant tree, and hope that possibly can be reviewed, because I know there are some other instances similar to this, and it seems like nobody can do anything, and they're quite dangerous in my view. So this is really about receiving and noting the petition, and I'm just wondering, is there any way, I assume this come as a further report to council possibly, because I don't know if we've got the photos that Mr. Fisher's brought along in with the report of the petition.
So your question's about next steps?
Yes.
Yep. So what
Through the matter to the
Director, what happens next with this issue?
Through the Chair, the matter in an assessment sense was dealt with through the DAP. There was an application lodged and it was refused because evidence wasn't provided, the tree was unhealthy or it was damaging structures of significant value. So it's been dealt with to a degree through that matter. We can provide a report, some photos of the tree, which I don't think it would add a lot of value to the discussion. But I guess probably the best way forward is to commence that DPA process in a timely manner and incorporate review of trees as part of that.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Councillor?
Just subsequently, I wouldn't believe there's any impediment Mr. Fisher emailing the photos to elected members.
Certainly not. You can correspond with any of us at any time.
Yes. Because it seems to me it might be new evidence perhaps that decision. And, you know, you see the size of some of these branches, they can be quite dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tobacco, and then Councillor Evans. Councillor
Just a question through the Chair. I'm not aware of the timeline of the development, so just looking on Google Earth, some of the developments are newer. What would be the repercussions or the legal responsibility of the builders in building so close to a significant tree?
Director.
Through the Chair, if the building was undertaken or the building work was undertaken after significant tree legislation, it would have been picked up as part of the assessment by the planning officers, and there would have been some rules put in place in relation to the footings or a significant canopy area, protection zone, tree protection zone or something like that during construction. But no further items.
So that could be.
Yeah, through the Chair, if it was newer than the legislation.
So you can't build under them with a new application. Is the nature of your question, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
The answer to that is a bit complicated in that you may be able to, but it would be assessed in detail and there would need engineering explanation as to whether or not that type of root system could handle that kind of footing system in or near its critical root zone or tree protection zone.
Pretty hard, what I was saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything further, Councillor? Councillor Evans.
Just wondering if I could suggest an amendment to the motion to add a subsequent clause and whether the mover might be amenable to that, just to reference this DPA that's going to occur and to say that the matter would be followed up in the context of the review of that DPA. So whoever moved,
How
I
many
think.
words that you've carefully thought through, Councillor?
Perhaps, that the registrar of significant trees, or that the register of significant trees be reviewed.
Hang on, just wait till we get it set up. at the register of significant trees
be reviewed during the relevant DPA amendment process. And I'd take advice if there was a more specific phrase to use in that context.
The word amendment is superfluous because it is the A in the DPA.
DPA process. And whether the mover would be amenable to it.
Registered trees.
Registered trees, sure. Yeah.
And just receive that petition. I'm being advised that having something other than noting a petition is contrary to our policy on receiving petitions. Generally, we separate out the action from the receipt. So just to try and keep that process intact, there's good reason for that process. Can I ask you to save that for general business, in which case we can refer to it then and refer back to the specific tree at 3 Iona Street?
No.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to do anything contrary to the policy, but it just seems like the natural round out that we've been discussing.
Yeah, and the policy framework is there to say thanks for the petition. We'll now decide what to do with it as a separate item rather than bundle it all together. If you're okay with that, don't forget it, and then we'll appear in general business.
Sure.
Councillor, anything further? Sorry, Councillor.
Oh, that's all. Thanks.
Councillor Stan.
Yeah, I'm just looking at what I seem to be a picture on Google Earth of the tree, and I'm noticing it's actually on a private property, and I do remember the petitioner saying it was on housing trust land. Have the housing trust, or will the housing trust be approached as a part of the process as the owner of the land where the tree is living?
Through the chair, through a DA process, through a development application process, that would have been advised that there was an application on their land. Through the DPA process, less likely. It's a relatively insignificant amendment to the overall city.
But for this particular request, they would certainly be consulted with me as part of this most recent action.
Yes, through the development application, the Housing Trust was aware that there was concern by a neighbour and that there was a live application on their land.
Okay, I think I'm getting that. I'm looking here, the trees where the tree is, it's an older, looks like a 70s build, where I assume number 3 is a newer build on. So that would have been...
3's older.
3's older?
Yeah.
3's older, 5's newer. Is that how it works? Right, okay. Okay. So if you have a tree on your property and someone's complaining about it, you automatically get asked about it. Is that how it works?
Through the chair, depending on whether there's an application lodged. Essentially, to clarify a couple of things, for health, wellbeing and safety in relation to a tree is on the owner of that tree. In this case, the onus is on the Housing Trust. As the petitioner said, petitioner himself has been in contact with the Housing Trust, and through our development application process we've had that contact as well. So they're aware that there are local concerns, but they have their own process to deal with what they would refer to as the appropriate level of risk management for each tree.
So there's not a lot of dovetailing between them and us?
Through the chair, no, because they're not the applicant.
Thank you. There would have been full notification. So, yeah. But there's their property.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Councillor Harris, do you wish to sum up?
Yeah, just very briefly, in taking on board what everyone said and the process, unfortunately it's not going to be a quick process to go and have a look at it. And I might add that I always get concerned with the trees because while that bigger one's at the front, there's also a large one out the back of the property, and the one at number 9 you start chopping and little Johnny Appleseed will go through the whole lot. So I'm glad we've accepted it. I'm glad we're going to look at it and glad we're going to reprocess the other. But I don't think it's a big comfort, but at least it's somewhere.
Okay. All right, thank you. That concludes the debate on the matter. All those in favour? Against? It is carried. Thank you. For your information, Mr. Pritch, that motion has been carried. Your petition will be received, and we will be discussing another matter in general business. It's been foreshadowed. I let it stay there so you can see it on the screen. So it won't be the end of the matter, but that will be quite some time away. So please stay in touch with the staff. You're more than welcome to stay for the balance of the meeting tonight if you wish, but if you wish to leave now, we'll take you down. Thank you very much for coming. Okay, now move on to the next item, which is deputations. There are nil. Motions on notice, nil. Questions of notice, nil. Are there any questions without notice? No. We'll move on then to the protocol. We have a number of reports before us tonight, and I'll go through them and see if anybody wishes to withdraw any items. And I've signalled two that I will withdraw, item 15.1 and 18.1. Anybody wish to withdraw item 13.1, the report of the Audit Committee meeting held on Monday the 17th of October? No? Cool. That, Councillor, was it like a yes? It was just scratching your 13.2, does anybody wish to withdraw the report of the Chief Executive Officer Performance Development Review Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 18th October? New KPIs. Right? 14.1, appointment of the Acting Chief Executive Officer. No. Item 15.1, Community Hub Library Innovation Centre project, I'll pull out for discussion. Item 15.2, 2017 Prospect Fair, does anybody wish to withdraw that one? So the backer. 15.3,
yes.
Community Grants Program, Councillor Harris. 16.1, opportunity to partner in the Australian Driverless Vehicle Initiative. Anybody wish to withdraw that? So, Barwood. 18.1, draft 30-year plan for Greater Adelaide. I'll withdraw to allow some discussion. 19.1, change of ordinary council meeting date April 2017. Anybody wish to withdraw that one? 19.2, City of Prospect Annual Report 2015-16, noting there's been some comments and the motion allows for minor edits. Does anybody wish to withdraw it? Right. 19.3, the Annual Business Plan and Budget Process on page 141. Does anybody wish to withdraw that? Looks like a good program. 19.4, the first budget review for 2016-17 on page 148. Does anybody wish to withdraw that? No. 19.5, the report on the digital transformation initiatives. Does anybody wish to withdraw that one? That's right. That got in. Okay. So I'll move on block. 13.1, 13.2, 14.1, 19.1, 19.2, 19.3, and 19.4. Councillor Harris. And as with our moving on block, there is no debate. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Standen. All those in favour? Against? They are carried. Thank you. Okay, let's start off then. The first one is item 15.1, the Community Hub Library Innovation Centre, the recommendation on page 14.
Yes.
And the recommendation is the Council receives the notice of the Community Hub Library Innovation Centre project update report. I'm just conscious though that it is the first report we've seen since our last workshop. I've encouraged the CEO to bring these reports to us on a regular basis. I think we've said nothing from now on. I think this one deserves some discussion. There's a lot in this report, and I think it would be wise for you to suspend meeting procedures for perhaps half an hour, so until 8:10. So I see your leave to do so. All those in favour? Against? That are suspended. So CEO, maybe you want to provide some introduction to the report, and then we'll turn over to the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, we have certainly been working very hard within the organisation to progress the project. This report, as the Mayor has indicated, is the first of a monthly report that will be coming to you. We have established a number of strategies to assist in delivering the project, and you will see in the report certainly the establishment of a project executive group. I undertook to do that to ensure that we keep the project on time and within budget, using the expertise available to us from within the organisation and through the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, and we'll be looking at also undertaking a comprehensive community engagement strategy, establishing a community reference group in the future, and we're working on that. You will see that there will be a workshop to be undertaken with SGS Economics, and we'll talk about that shortly, but that will provide you with a complete update in terms of the work that they have been undertaking. What I would like to do is defer to the Director, Nathan Cunningham, to run you through the range of options that we are looking at. There are many options, and we have tried to refine those options so that we have a meaningful discussion. I think each one of them is worthwhile discussing, notwithstanding whether they are viable or not, but I think we owe it to our community to ensure that we investigate a range of options for both sites, so that we present back to you a comprehensive position before you make a decision relating to the location. And I believe that we are on time. We're working through a project plan at the moment, so I want to assure you that we are dedicating significant resources to this project to bring it to you within the allocated timeframe, and we believe we'll be able to do that. So what I would like to do, with your indulgence, Mayor, is to hand over to Nathan just to run through the work that SGS Economics are undertaking for us, to brief the councillors on that before questions.
Just before we do that, because I think that is the main part of the discussion, can you talk to us a little bit more about what other processes you've got happening in parallel? Like what's the body of work you've got underway at the moment? The SGS has been just one part.
Certainly, so there's a range of processes being undertaken. One is the development of a detailed project plan, which will provide you with a detailed time frame of the project. That is a detailed project plan development through the Microsoft project plan, which will give you a critical path of decision making. Whilst we've developed a timeframe for the project internally, I think it's important to engage you in relation to that critical decision path that we will be required to undertake. So we will be presenting to you a detailed project plan. The second element is developing up an expression of interest in relation to the project manager. You provided authority for the organisation to seek a project manager for the project some months ago. We are currently working on an expression of interest in relation to that, which will detail the role of the project manager. We have, in the meantime, gathered a list of project managers who have experience in delivering either council projects and or specifically library projects, which we intend to seek a response from. I think there's about 10 or so on the list, in order to be able to do a limited tender in relation to that process. And the third thing that we've been working on is a community engagement plan and strategy, so that you will understand at what point we engage with the community, why we're engaging with them, what the role of that engagement is, and the timing of that engagement. And that will be a comprehensive plan that you will be receiving, I anticipate, in the next report, so that you'll understand how we intend to engage with members of our community on this really important project.
Okay, so before we get into the SGS bit and the options, anybody any questions about the process and what's we've got, what's coming? Alison?
Yeah, sorry. Look, it was just a question in regards to the leadership group, which is PEG. I get confused with all the acronyms. I just wanted to be reassured that, I guess, having gone through getting rid of our champions groups, because it seemed to be, informal meetings, is this a committee? Will it be minuted, and will other elected members be allowed to listen to what discussions are going on?
The meetings are minuted, so there is an action sheet that's produced, and certainly very happy for the councillors to receive that. It is an internal working party, so it has a range of staff on it, and we're meeting fortnightly at the moment. And I've also got an internal staff meeting happening fortnightly as well, to ensure that we are delivering the resources to achieve our goal. So I'm more than happy to share with you the notes coming out of those meetings and the action sheet that will provide you with information in terms of where we're up to, and certainly happy to respond to any queries you have in respect to that.
I guess from my point of view, this is a very complex project. Not just because we need to build a new facility, but there's so much that happens in that facility, so much we want to happen in that facility which we can't do where we are at the moment. It's already complex. Add on to that, we need to find a site for it. Add on to that, we've got two but haven't agreed yet which one it is. Add on to that, we're doing an economic overlay about the impact of where we put it. Add on to that, we might put other stuff with it or on it. There's layer upon layer upon layer of decision making in this process. I wouldn't want anybody to be uncomfortable with how the executive are pushing this along. I'm here, and the Deputy Mayor said, to make sure it gets pushed along and that we believe that our legal interests are being dealt with appropriately. If anybody else wants to be part of that, I don't feel like we can exclude that. But I just caution against the previous position, which was that everybody's on the committee. It's just too unwieldy. But I think if there's a process of letting people know when those meetings are occurring, if other people want to come out.
Yeah, I think that's the observing thing.
I'm happy with that. I think having seen the background is appropriate. I think you're there. And I'm just worried about a committee of 20 people. It's already got 8 on it, I think, hasn't it? There's all the specialist team that we need on it. But I don't have any problem with any councillor coming to any one of those if you want it. I would want you to think that there's some kind of secret squirrel going on. It's just a lot of stuff to get through before it can even make sense to come here for a decision. But there's no point bringing you a half-baked brief for a project manager to one of these council meetings. You're not going to like it, you won't accept it. But it has to come to those other meetings to keep it being pushed along. So that's the purpose of those.
But to that, I'd actually like to commend the staff and CEO for taking this action, because I think it is really important to get a group together, get it done. The other thing that I was looking for in the report and can't find it, it may be coming to us, but certainly there's a lot of words about economics. There's not a lot about social benefit, and that was one of the things that I was, quite forceful in getting on there. The other thing that I've noted in the 30-year plan that we talk to later in the agenda is talking about the value of heritage and tourism, and have we actually accounted the fact that it's our only state-listed heritage building and we own it and it's an asset, what that value is. I know it's a little bit abstract, but then there's a lot of other figures washing around here. I just want to make sure that's captured so that when we go to the residents, we can say, well, that's been assessed.
Yep, I think they're important elements to make sure SGS is covering off. In my view, they are required to deal with those matters, and we selected them, as I see, reassured by the team, because of their expertise, demonstrated expertise in dealing with community hubs and environments, as in where, from a community servicing point of view, they would best go, not just economically. But a reminder, it's good.
The project brief certainly included that as an element, as you aware, and we will be speaking with SGS, and the team speaks with them regularly. In terms of the value of the state heritage item as a tourist site, we'll certainly take that back and make sure that we've actually highlighted that as part of the element of the economic assessment.
Just on that, we have certainly pointed out the heritage listing of certain sites, including Town Hall, local listed and the state listed depot site or tram barn site over there. We certainly pointed them out as key elements of the site or key features of the site. Obviously, there's some constraints that go with that. Building on top of them, very difficult. But that being said, clearly assets and clearly have a value as an asset. So we've been quite clear with that. We probably haven't gone to the extent under that local heritage assessment in terms of an actual value like what was presented at the Town Hall, Adelaide Town Hall a few weeks ago. I don't know that we can push them to that degree, but they're certainly very clear that elements on both sites have intrinsic heritage value to be capitalised on.
I think it'll be feedback from this meeting, which SGS will be very interested in, so no doubt you'll actually take it to them. Anything further, Alison? I'll move on to Christine.
Yes, I would like to, because it didn't seem to come through very strongly or clearly to me in reading what we've got before us tonight, about the adaptive uses of any of our heritage items that are involved on both sites, as pointed out. So, that's somewhere to be underscored about adaptive use. And
on both sides, I presume.
Because depending what happens, I think we will need to have a clear plan, about the relative costs, the adaptive reuse, and some of that bottom line stuff in relation to our heritage items. But also, I did send an email around and was sort of assured that the milk depot, I call it a milk depot site, so it's got on the corner of Borden Road, where we own corner of Borden Road and Main North Road. That's inherent in all that discussion. So I would really like to see that added, page 34, attachment 17, where we detail the options for site assessment. So we've only got Prospect Depot / Train Barn, corner of Johns Road and Main North Road. So I would really like to see added to that, whatever we call it, the milk depot, and so it's a corner of Borden Road and Main North Road as well.
For the sake of the tables, could it say depots / tram barn site? So it's in the text to pick it all up, but sort of summarise it in the attachment 17.
The corners of Johns Road, Gordon Road, and Main North Road.
You can certainly make that a clear definition because that whole site is being considered. So we'll clarify that in the documentation.
Yes.
Yeah, I think my email today just sort of explained, we simply just refer to it as depot and tram barn, but it's absolutely inclusive of every square metre of the depot site, but we can change some language in there.
Yes.
Just so that's clearer beyond these.
So I'll just leave it at that because we're going to discuss in more depth, aren't we?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So just the first,
that's the first bit, just hold it there. Yeah. Thank you, Alan.
Just looking at attachment 17. I was going to say about the milk depot, but mine in particular that I just wanted to ask a question is page 16, 511, the executive team, which is the various people, you, Mark, Kate, etc., on it. I always heard someone famous said 24 people make a small group, but I won't push that point. My only question that comes there that says on the very following page at the top, terms of reference for the group established, and it's somewhere else. Well, I just didn't see it. So can someone tell me where it is? Or
we'll be coming to the November council meeting. So we presented a draft terms of reference to the project executive group. We've received some response, so we're going to update that and include that in the next.
You can use that to backfire on me. I thought this was the November meeting.
They're definitely thinking.
Yeah, it's all right. It's October. Sorry.
You have to be ahead of yourself sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you've got to get out front. You've got to get there.
Okay. Any more questions or any comments about the process?
Other than, I kind of wouldn't suggest anything else, but I quite like the report and I quite like the methodology. I thought it was relatively sound. The way they're talking about doing a financial analysis and the cost-benefit analysis and splitting the two out, so the cost-benefit analysis taking into account community equity, community sentiment, and some of those non-financial considerations as separate to the analysis they're going to do from a financial perspective, and to layer one on top of the other and to compare results looking at two very different metrics, I thought was an interesting and probably appropriate way to do it. So, so I guess reading that report, I did have some confidence around the process. I thought that was good, what they proposed.
Okay, thank you. There's no more about the process. We'll move to what's on page 34, attachment 17, and they are the models that we're working on. This is a really important table, and it's taken some working to get to this point. Of course, you can't agree on exactly what will be analysed until the consultant gets their head into the detail and the staff discuss with them how they're going to go about their approach. This is the current status of what has been agreed between the officers and the consultants as to the range of options. Really important to note that no less options, no fewer options will be examined, and unless we want another one, there will be no additional options examined. So the first thing is, this is what everyone believes the range to be. And secondly, these are relatively specific. So this is what will be analysed for each of these options. There may be some comments around the table about whether they've included too much or missed something. So perhaps start with you, Christina, because you had some comments about the table.
Yes. I did find it a bit difficult. I guess we're only being asked to make a sort of decision tonight, but we agree that, you know, there aren't any other extra combinations or whatever. So I'm happy to go with that. But I did find it a bit difficult because there isn't any real analysis for either option. So, I mean, what waiting, you know, saying, well, do we go with all of them? I do find that it seems to be a lot of work to have all those options and a lot of money as well to examine all of them.
I think it is important that the consultants do examine a range of options. We've tried to refine that as much as possible. There's no information attached to that because this is the scope of work they're doing when they will run through each one of those. I mean, I guess the more obvious ones is sell one or the other, and then what do we do with each of the site, which the site that's been selected. But I don't think you can make that decision unless you've actually considered what the options are. And since I've been here, I've heard a range of suggestions around let's do residential, let's do commercial, let's do childcare, let's do everything, let's not do things. So we've tried to refine it in such a way that your decision making will be assisted in the information that you're provided. And so we actually probably considered how best to present that, and we believe that in this format it clearly indicates to you what are the opportunities that we've got on either of the sites.
Yes. I mean, I must admit that I'm being upfront, so I'm not in favour of selling any of that to start with, but I'm quite happy to look at the you know, triple bottom line effect and the pluses and minuses.
And that's exactly why we wanted to put this in here. In that we know there will be views about sale of assets, but we need to give those figures in terms of what that means. I mean, are we sitting on a $15 million asset here that, you know, we should essentially kick ourselves out of to get out of the way? That's really the assessment that's going to go in here to inform that decision.
Yes. And I'm still not clear at all on, because we've got the ability to do up to 4 stories on this side, up to 4 stories on the other side, I don't see any indication that will be examined. All I've heard so far is that it's just going to be like ground floor. And I'm not happy.
No, look,
we want to know what the areas will be from.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because really we're looking at
it's absolutely in there. And look, I think it might pay, because I believe me, I get it. This table is a little bit difficult to take in. We've all had a crack at trying to make it easier and put it in a flow chart and put it do different things. But it might just be worth, you know, just go through
That might be worthwhile. I might answer some of your questions.
point by point in terms of exactly what we're, and I'll try and use some simplified language as well. Option 1, where it says retain both sites. Essentially what that's saying, and then we've got the 2 columns, the Civic Centre site and we've got depots / tram barn site in the other column. Look at the first column. Retain Civic Centre is basically status quo here is what's going to be assessed as option 1, and then retaining the site for on Main North Road and developing a modestly updated, essentially Thomas Street Centre facility with a few other things added to it. So it's almost a bit of a base case, but just refer to that as option 1 with no further development on that site. So this is where the airspace isn't taken up. This is the almost the cheap option as a starting
single
point.
story, big car park.
It builds on from there. Then we've got the second option, which is retaining both sites but maximising the development potential on essentially the new developed site, which in this case would be the depot site. So status quo here again, so no change from option 1, And then option 2, the difference is we go up. We find partners, joint venture, whatever it is, to get the highest and best use on that site. Then we look at option 3, which is slightly different in that the civic centre would potentially be sold under that model, therefore relocating all the services and facilities from here, possibly with the exception of the town hall. It's a little bit more difficult as I say, to then relocate all those services and facilities to the depot site to have library, innovation centre plus all the civic facilities there.
I think you need to be really clear when this is going out to the public that you're selling the civic centre and not the town hall. And it doesn't spell that out there.
Well, I think we need to be clear on that. And I'm certainly
Well, I was told by the
open-minded.
CEO today that's what that meant. So I just want
I think that's our decision. Then the SGS are going to make it for us. We've had designs to completely convert the town hall into bars and restaurants. And we can choose to own it and deal with all the maintenance issues over the next 50 years. We can choose to say, no, actually, we'll redevelop it as bars and restaurants, and then we'll sell it to someone, and you can have all the issues, but we've got our bars and restaurants, thank you very much, for the benefit of the community. So I've still got an open mind. I don't care.
So the financials will come back.
The ownership in the long term is a decision for us to make in due course.
Yeah. Okay. Then we've got option 4, which has some similarities again in terms of the sale of assets at this site, doing everything in terms of council's functions on the depot tram barn site, and then going up again. So in some respects similar to option 2, that's the highest and best use one, but it includes the civic facilities that would currently be here. Then we move on to option 5 and 6, which is kind of the inverse of 3 and 4, where we're looking to sell the tram barn depot site so that someone else can develop that site for whatever they choose and bring all the facilities of the Library and Innovation Centre to this site. Then there's the difference with option 6, which is exactly the same, plus highest and best use at this site. So there's only one option that's looking at highest and best use at this site, but there's not as many options essentially around because we've got the facilities here under option 1 and 2, where it's the status quo model essentially. So there's sort of those 3 different scenarios that are broken down into 2 each, if that's a little bit clearer. Acknowledging it isn't the easiest thing to convey in a table.
I think it probably would have warranted a map for each of them, showing the locations, and maybe a matrix with the features. That would have been sort of easy to convey.
I think for a public consultation phase, it's a good suggestion. So it's nice and clear to anybody who couldn't read, what options 1 and 2 and whatever were.
But I think, I'd certainly like to get a sense with the other councillors as far as maximising the airspace. I mean, I'm all for doing that to fund what happens at the lower levels, to keep both assets if we could. That's my point at this point. But I guess I didn't see that clarified anyway.
Yeah, look, I guess in order to capture those thoughts, option 2, 4 and 6 look at maximising, but 4 and 6 will consider what the value is of either this asset to sell or that asset is to sell. But that's really just the bottom line figure that you either choose to agree with or not.
The funding decision and the sell decision are closely related. I know Mark wants to react in a second. We'll get to the funding and borrowings discussion at some point in time. And I'd love to be the controller of everything in our, create our own destiny and develop both sites to 4 stories high. But you're talking a $40 million commitment. That's a big loan for us. That's twice 1 year's revenue. So we actually may not be able to do that, which means the sites might not get developed as best they could, which means we're in the way of them being developed. So we need to have a good honest look at ourselves at some stage and say, are we part of the solution, or is our limited capacity going to constrain what should happen in these places? And we're not ready to have that discussion yet because we've got to get this stuff first. This report might say, don't bother. Doesn't matter whether it's you or someone else, it's not worth doing. So let's get this step done, and then we'll talk about how to fund what bits and whether we do everything or some bits or get a partner or whatever in due course. We just don't have enough information for that yet. Now, Mark's been hanging on for a while.
You need to extend meeting proceedings.
Okay.
I noticed there's not a inverse of option 1 and 2 where we redevelop the site and keep that other site as it is.
Okay. You're right. So they both say that we're going to sell the depot tramline site. I guess that's anticipating that the depot is going to relocate anyway, is it? Can I get some advice from the executive about that?
The executive is currently investigating the depot operations, as I'm sure you're aware, in terms of what the future operations of the depot will look like. And we're trying to not be constrained by the current way the depot operates. So if we're moving into a new future with depot operations, it may be that the staff, and there are indoor staff at the depot, and we try and bring everybody who are indoor staff as much as possible up underneath one roof and have just-in-time service delivery around materials, whatever it is. So we're trying not to be constrained by the way the operations are happening at the moment. In terms of the actual operation, the table, you'd always have the option not to sell the depot. So if this site was maximised and you didn't want to relocate the depot could stay at John Street, and or you could undertake to have the depot operations from another site, still retain the depot site, but you may want to lease it.
Okay, it was just a curious anomaly that I saw.
Yeah, I see that.
Pick up. Yeah. I think this is good. Again, good feedback to SGS. I would expect that it could easily be a subset of option 5 or 6, given that they just say sell it. Just say what's the benefit of not selling? And that should be a very simple question too. I think what you're seeing is that we built up expectation from previous council and this one that there's something better can happen at that depot site if it's not the community hub.
The other one I had was one I put in an email, which was in 5 and 6. It talks about retaining the depot operations and then seemingly at the Civic Centre site, which is here. So is that so that might actually be coming out of what you're saying, which is internal depot rather than having the piles of bark and
But that's absolutely correct. We're trying to create a depot for the 21st century, really. How are we going to be delivering those sorts of services to our community? And there's a whole range of staff at the depot who, at the moment, you could suggest they're a bit disengaged from the other operations of the council. And I'll look at models where the depot operations and the staff operations are all together. So it's one organisation, and you get much greater synergy, economies of scale in relation to that. So in terms of the actual operations of the depot, that presents us though with other issues if it was to be here, because we don't anticipate having stockpiles of brick pavers and mulch and things like that. We would need to consider a different way of operating, and the engagement of the staff. So we're trying to keep ourselves positioned well to consider all ways of keeping the organisation as one organisation. And are we operating the depot in the best way at the moment? Potentially not. Is there a different way we operate? Yes, there is. Now, that doesn't exclude the option of looking at relocating the depot, because the Director of Infrastructure is continuing to look at that option, and we'll certainly be coming back to you shortly in relation to some of that discussion.
So you're still going to need, at some stage, you're still going to need places for trucks and diggers and utes and dirt and mulch.
Yeah, certainly, well, that could be the case. Or we actually have arrangements where, for instance, mulch is delivered directly to the site, so we don't actually stockpile it. We actually deliver directly to the site, or we may have an arrangement with a supplier that we actually store some excess material on their site and we use it as we need it.
So where it says in option 1, retain both sites, and it's got relocate depot operations elsewhere, that could actually cascade down through pretty much all the options.
Yes, it could. Yes, that's right. Yes.
And once we have a figure on that through option 1, we'll be able to compare it.
It takes when you get rid of the depot operations, it takes a ball out of the air, doesn't it?
And there is, I think, quite a high expectation that that's what will come to us at some point from the team, is that the depot operations will change their nature and location. We're waiting on that. That's coming. There are options. Regardless of anything else, there are still options. Okay, well, they're all good comments. Any others on the... Sorry, and so coming back to your question at the start, Alison, about where is the third and fourth story, it's expressed by SGS in that language, maximise development potential, highest and best use on site. That's what they mean by whatever you can do.
Okay, so it's exploiting development plan potential is the language we've used over the phone.
That would also, again, I would like the sort of social benefit. I mean, talking about affordable housing, all those kind of things. So I guess my sensitivity is it's great to maximise development, but, you know, the purpose should be for our community as well.
And all the correspondence that we've had with them has suggested a social layer be put over this analysis. Waiting to see how that, I guess,
and sustainability, I hope, as well.
Yeah, the question about what purpose we put the space to is something that I don't think we'll get an answer tonight, but I want you to think deeply about this. If we want to go to the risk of building a third and fourth level for some other purpose, it has to be paid for somehow. It will double the cost of the project. So we're thinking 8, think 16, we're thinking 10, think 20 million. If we want to do that and it pays money back to us, we think, well, that's a really good investment. We're now going to be the owner of an investment that will pay us rent, pay it off in 10 years, and for the next 40 years of its life, the next councils will enjoy that revenue stream. That's terrific. So we've got to think of the $20 million borrowings, but think of the revenue stream. I can kind of understand that. If you wanted to have a non-commercial benefit that doesn't provide a revenue stream that can pay off a loan and provide some kind of income stream going forward, that's a very different process for us to think through. It's a very different risk profile to place upon future councils. So I want us all to think through what's our appetite for, number one, building more than we need and potentially getting a commercial return. Number two, building more than we need for another purpose on which we might not get a return. And then how do we mix all that? Now, SGS will help us with some of that. The other non-commercial stuff will be more our decision.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I saw it or not now. Have we got like an expected life expectancy, for want of a better word, of buildings? Because I think a lot of that hinges on, you know, if we see it's going to have a lifespan, you know, of 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, like we don't, you know, trying to envisage what our future will be for our community, whatever. And I think it always seems, doesn't matter whatever you build, you always run out of room, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and if you scrimp, well then you'll bear the cost, the negative cost of that as well. So I'm sure those things. Yeah.
So we're just running out of time. Do you want to have a bit more discussion? One? Okay, so we'll just seek leave to suspend meeting procedures until 8:20 should we need it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Basically at the final point, I didn't see too much in there about how whatever we do there can be like a catalyst building, particularly for our main North Road Boulevard. I think that's just going to be such an important process, you know, and a green space example. You know, a building for the future and a building that can be a flagship in partnership possibly with others or another. To realise our main North Road Boulevard dream, you know, was it the Boulevard of Dreams? Yeah, so I'm not sure of somewhere that's picked up.
It may not be in this text, but certainly that's the language we've been talking with SGS about.
it's been all about how do we maximise that potential and what value would we place on catalysing the immediate locality and broader locality. So that's, they've got a different head for this than me. They'll put a dollar figure around what that may be worth. So that's my understanding of what's going to come to us. The tantalising part for me is that yes, we could provide a flagship building here or there, but could that be done by somebody else? Come back to the initial statement I made. We could control both sites and build the best thing for both sites and be up for a $45 million outlay. It could be amazing. But we're going to have to do a prudential report on this as part of the legislation. I don't know how we would justify to a community that we would spend $45 million. So at some stage we're going to need either some partners or we're going to need to transfer some of the risk to somebody else, either by selling the site or getting a joint venture partner or some kind of framework where they've got their money and they're not ours. So I'm quite excited by how to get both sites to be the best they can be. How we actually finance that, I don't have that answer. I think that's the bit that your question is basically around.
Well, I'm thinking like long-term leases.
Yes.
I can't just think off the top of my head, but I know there are examples, of those sorts of builds and partnerships, and this is only opportunity in a few lifetimes.
Yeah, I think we've all got to keep a really open mind on a number of things here. One being, where's the best place for this community hub? Because it can happen at either site, and the other good stuff can happen at either site as well. It's not the core of the catalyst. It can be part of it, it doesn't need to be part of it. The next thing to keep an open mind about is what could happen at these two sites if they both got developed. And dream that dream, and SGS will help us with that. And then what's our part of making that happen? And then honestly sit back and say, are we getting in the way of that happening? Which is a much harder question. So there's lots to work through this thread. It's pretty exciting. So we've got two great sites in the middle of it. We need to make sure that we've got Joe and the team somewhere to work at the end of 2019. So we can't forget the imperative. The imperative is we've got to have another community centre. So option one that's either for you is just head to where we control the most space, which is the main North Road site, build a single story something, big bit of bitumen and white paint, and your bottom site. But we know this. Well, yeah, but we know that would be a lost opportunity in some ways. So, yeah, it's quite interesting. So any further feedback for the team and to give to SGS? Tell us.
I like the options. Not sure which one I would prefer. There is an awful lot to work through and there's a lot to consider, and certainly over the next couple of months it's going to be very much, I think, a trying couple of months to get this analysis out. For me, the option of selling is on the table, though. I'm not shy of that. If that's the way we can get the community the outcome that's best for them, in a way that's going to work for them, in a way that we can afford, it's got to be something that we look at. I don't know it's the option. I'm not sure it's the one we go with, but I'm certainly not shy to look at it and to see what that could mean.
Yeah, we could do all this and not add a cent to our debt, for instance. That's possible. Yeah. Any further comments? Alison?
I guess I've just got a sensitivity about selling our heritage, and so the economic tourism, what we as a council could do about that, and I guess case in point would be the poor Brighton Town Hall. If anyone's been down Brighton Road recently, now I think it's been sold, and it's just sitting there. Now that would break my heart, it would break our community's heart if something like that happened. And unfortunately, once it's sold, it's very hard to put controls around that. So, I mean, our heritage obviously needs to be maintained, but it's still standing at the moment. I don't know if selling that is the best idea, or what controls you can put around it if we do sell it.
Yeah, it's always a challenge, I think, and it's interesting. I spoke to the mayor of Bay at the conference, and he says it's such a tough decision. It will be turned into a childcare centre, and the whole component will be preserved, but it will have a life, it will have an active use. He says that's what it needs. He says we as a council have no use for it. We can't work out how we would use it in any way whatsoever. It's dying. They will actually use it. He said, so which pro quo it is. Yes, we've lost control, but at least it's being used and it develops some funding which keeps it alive, and the controls from a heritage point of view are there. So these are very difficult things to balance. Not every state listed project is in government hands. Not every local heritage item is in government hands. Very few local items. So I think that's yet another layer in the decision making. So how do we get the best benefit out of that? So you don't want to be dead for quick, would you? Okay, back to the recommendation then. I'll pause back to formal proceedings. So the recommendation for this item is that the council receives and notes the Community Hub Library Innovation Centre project update report, and the staff have taken plenty of notes, so they feel the need to note that notes have been taken, and there's someone specific who does. Somebody wish to move the recommendation as it is in the papers. Councillor Evans.
After a very thorough discussion, I don't think I've got anything else to say.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Standard?
I'm good.
Okay, any further debate? All those in favour? It's carried. So thank you. Great feedback on that. Next item is the sorry, just informally, for those worried about the decision-making pathway, I've asked the CEO to prepare a decision-making flowchart and decision-making tree. And whenever there was a decision that the CEO could make by herself, I said, are you happy to do that on your own, or would you like some friends with that decision? It seemed to be that there were lots of them, the CEOs looking for lots of friends. So I can assure you that, for instance, the selection of the architect will not be made solely by the CEO, because the CEO wants lots of friends in that decision, if you know what I mean. Very important stepping stone. And so you'll see a lot about this item going forward. Next item withdrawn was item 15.2, the 2017 Prospect Fair. Councillor DeBacker, just a brief reason why you threw it. And do you want to move?
Yeah, it was just in regards to consultation with the Broadview Football Club. I rang them late this afternoon, and they've got their AGM in November, and I'm just wondering if anyone's talking to them about the AGM.
Was that a brief question? Director?
Through the Chair, we'll certainly commence discussions pending the outcome of tonight's recommendation.
Yep, thank you. And just from the Chair, I announced that we were heading down this path. I said we sort of made a council decision. It looks like what we'd like to do at the Broadview Community Day in the football club rooms, and said October, November. You haven't got a precise date. All the community groups were there, and I heard fantastic feedback about that. So no doubt they'll be thinking about it, but we need obviously to coordinate all those dates. Good point. Councillor, are you happy to move it?
Yes.
Can you withdraw it? Richard, speak any further to it?
No.
Any further discussion? Oh, sorry, I'm a seconder. Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it?
No, not at this stage.
Any further debate? Councillor Lowe.
I wasn't at the workshop where this was discussed. I think I was teleconferencing into this part of it. So I couldn't judge the mood of the room. Apparently it was ebullient in favour of this option, but that doesn't represent my feelings on this decision. I won't be supporting it. There's a number of reasons for that, and the thing I wanted to take off the table was I believe that the Broadview Oval and that space up there really deserves an opportunity to be activated and to get some more things happening. I'm a very strong advocate of that. I don't think this is the right thing to do it. I think that jamming everything in together into one thing, such as what we're planning on doing, so we've got a play well sports and recreation fair, we've got a carnival atmosphere, we've got the traditional Prospect Fair, we've got everything shoved in together into the one spot and the one time. It's not the way society's going. Society's actually breaking things down and doing things in more bespoke and more custom and more targeted way. And we see that with our small bars, we see that with the types of restaurants that we have, we see that in a move away from the mega Westfields to more Main Street, back street type shops and arrangements and things like that. So I think that this is flying in the face of where society is going. I think it'll mean that the fair will lose its personality, which is intrinsically related to the site, St Helens Park, where it's been for many, many years. I don't think enough work was actually done to look at redesigning the event where it currently is. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction, and I think it was a lazy decision to go down this pathway, despite taking on board that consultation suggested that everybody was brilliant at the meeting amongst storeholders, etc. I don't know whether a proper risk analysis process was carried out regarding what might happen if this doesn't work. What are the concerns, and how are we going to make sure we cover those concerns? I think that if this doesn't work, then the whole concept of a community fair is dead and buried. We can't reinvent it back at St Helens Park. The timing of the Playwell Sports and Rec Fair, if this event goes ahead in, say, October, is useless to everybody because it doesn't coincide with the summer or winter season commencing. So none of the groups who we might have been targeting with a separate event will gain virtually any benefit at all. So I think that part of it will be a flop as well. So that's the reasons why I won't be supporting it tonight.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I do think it would have been a nice touch for us to have had the final ones, Helens Park, the 40th one at least, sort of going straight up to Broadview Oval. But it's a trial period over 3 years. I mean, let's face it, the Prospect Fair has morphed from being an extremely charity-run type, do-gooder, etc., one in the old-fashioned sense, and it's morphed through the years. I've been to just about nearly every single one, so I can sort of see, that it has changed. I think, not every event remains the same every year in and year out. It might have the same elements and things like that. So I don't think that's a worry. And also, it's when I was reading through this, it just occurred to me that it would be, and this might be something I bring up in general business, that it would be really good to have a handle on what are we doing with our events. Like we've now sort of come to a workshop, so now we've got the Diwali event being held in St Helens Park. I think that's an excellent use. I'd still like to have seen something happening down in Charles Kane, when we had the community consultation, or after the Churchill Road planning thing, and we had that community fair all down there, and that was a fantastic atmosphere. We don't have anything that happens up at the Regency Road Reserve. That's a huge plot of our land. That's probably, I don't know, bigger than St Helens Park. Just really going to waste, in a sense. You could be having something happening really down there as well. And yeah, so they were my sort of thoughts as I was reading this. So I think it's, things happen. If it's on a trial basis and then it doesn't work, well, then you're back trying something else. I thought the Broadview, back to Broadview, had all the elements except for the horrible weather. But, that would have been really fantastic if the weather had shone there. That's got the bare bones, I think, something really good to happen. So I'm prepared to give this a go, but I would like us to be having a look, further across the city and where our events are held as well.
Further debate? Councillor Stan.
I reckon it's a great idea having something over that side of Prospect, and I really look forward to letting the people of that area know that there's going to be something happening, and they can walk to the event rather than having to travel across and come all the way up to St Helens Park. I reckon it's going to be great. I'm very positive about the weather maybe, but I reckon it's going to be fantastic, and I reckon the people of that area will embrace it and see it as something happening on their side of the fence.
Thank you. Further debate? Councillor Evans?
Just briefly, it is a gamble. There's no question about that. I'm going to support it. I think there's a huge amount of goodwill and opportunity to make it work, but I really do take the point that Councillor Larwood's raised as well. It is and yeah, we can only, I think, make the most of it. Yeah, given the opportunity that's there and given what we can do. So, yeah, looking forward to supporting it, but take on board the points and the risks that go with it as well.
And just briefly from the chair, I'll be supporting it too. I've been trying to get this to this stage for a long time, and I think it's time. I think there's a high degree of comfort. I understand that not everybody's comfortable. That's probably a good thing. Just keeps us thinking hard about all the risks. So I welcome Councillor Larwood's contribution tonight, but also like a bit more work to be done on the play well and come and try day exercise. What is the most appropriate timing for that? And if it is the most appropriate way to deal with it, I think it is, but I'm not a sports person's earlobe, so I'm not the expert. What I do know is that Broadview Community Day proved that there was a community that's looking for an event over there. They worked incredibly hard to get that event up. It was such a shame to see it, people there with flippers on and goggles to get around. The stuff they did, though, that we'd not thought of before, that I thought was great, was they had a really good amount of things for pet owners, particularly dogs. Over by the dog park, and I had 3 or so stalls, and they were really, really good. And they weren't just community groups; they were privateers who were providing services. So there's that challenge about what is this new event? Is it just for charity, says Councillor Barnett pointed out, which is how the St Helens one started, or is it some other hybrid of stuff that the community wants that happens to have a bit of everything in it? I think that's a nice challenge for us to think about as we reinvent this event. The other thing they demonstrated was there's a ton of room up there, absolutely acres of space. And they were perched here, there and whatever. And I think if they had a good crowd, you still would have needed a map and a compass to find everything. They had, higher bike things by the bike track, which can't do us in Helens Park, obviously. They had another council tent there somewhere that put it quite some distance from everything. No, that's not true. But of course, because put over influence just across the back fence. And it seems to me there's a lot of space to have sporting activities as well as a community fair, as well as stuff that aligns with the play area and the dog park, as well as a better area for show rides. And those of you who've been involved in St Helens Park, if you don't go looking for them, you almost miss the show rides because we always tuck them up the back behind the toilet block. And I kind of get the feeling that it's like a small town excuse for a show rides event, and it's pretty well. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we could do better. We could get bigger rabbits or something else. And I was intrigued by Councillor Evans the other day asking me how much the Shaman's Guild pay us to have access to that site back there. I thought, I've never seen a revenue line in our fair budget, but relayed to me that other events are offered large fees by the Showman's Guild to place substantial show rides there. So money off it, and it's a big attractor. And when you have things going up and down in the air that light up and go whiz and bang, they become a big attractor. So I thought, wow, that's, with the space we've got at Broadview Oval, we could really start thinking about that. The other thing Broadview Oval's got is it has more than 6 car parks, which would be a nice refreshing change from the St Helens Challenge, shall we just nicely call it that. I'll try and actually find out that people park to come there, but they don't walk there. So I'm really excited by the prospect of doing it there. I think there's a good community to help us there. I think the clubs are really excited about being part of it. But I think Councillor Larwood's raised some valuable points, which no doubt the directors made a note of, and we'll work into the thinking about the event. So look forward to seeing you there. Now, I think that concludes the debate, other than Councillor De Backer, if you wanted to sum up.
Yeah, it's a really interesting debate, and look, I'm the same as Talis. I think Councillor Larwood made some really important points, and I think we all want it to be a success. I think the other thing you have to think about as well, we've got a Diwali festival happening in St Helens Park. Isn't that fantastic? And that's sort of, it's about how our spaces are being used by our community. So obviously there's some council funding and support going into a few events, and obviously this one in Broadview and it will be a different event. I think the biggest challenge is going to be people finding it, because it's not on the main road, and I would suggest one of those little fun blimps up high so people can see where to go, because it is a difficult area to navigate. It looks great from the sky. But yeah, so there's a few challenges, but I think it will be a really good event. So yeah, I hope you support the motion, and look forward to attending.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? It is carried. Okay, the next item withdrawn was the annual community grants program 2016-17. Councillor Harris, just a brief reason why you thanks, Councillor.
Two. One, so I could move it, but the other one was I wanted to point out a couple of reasons why not everyone got their money. So
okay,
do you want me to?
As the mover.
Okay. I'd like to move it because I think it's always good that we give groups and people within our community or near vicinity monies to help them to service our community. This year, and I think I've been on it for quite a few years, I don't know how many years to be honest, but most probably when we had pounds, shillings and pence, but it's always been a fairly good area to be able to help people. I do see some drawbacks with it at times, that over the years it's got harder and harder. People might not be the correct word, but unorganised residents of small groups and that would find it very hard to get money, because the way it sort of goes now, you've got to have incorporations, treasurers, books and dollars and cents, and it makes particularly areas that have happened with Christmas carols and street parties and things like that, all those extra things we've got to have become harder to do. But in this case, we had so many applications for money. Not only couldn't we give everyone a quid, we had to go further and really sort of drag out the rules and the whole criteria of getting the money. And whereas if we some years have been in a situation we're not going too bad, and the Lions or various groups come along, or school groups and that, we say, oh yes, because we got to share, we can help them. We've had to pull the rules sort of, you've had money over the last couple of years, or it's a government thing, i.e. schools. Nailsworth School was one of them. And so we had to limit our money, and some areas that were close on the other side of our border, but do service people in our area. But because the show was on the other side, we had to knock them back. So it's a sad thing to say, to support this, to say that we gave money to various people because we just didn't have enough. But I'm very happy to move the various things that we've got in it, that we have helped a lot of groups again this year do various things to help other people in the community. So I move the motion.
Okay, thank you. The list is there. Have a second. That's the standard. We should speak to it.
No, good, thanks.
Further debate? None of being the case. Councillor Harris, would you sum yourself up?
I believe the previous speaker was quite good. Thank you.
I'm sure that's introducing new material or not. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried. Someone could retrieve Councillor Larwood.
It's all right when you can. Where'd you go? Out in the road.
Yeah, sitting up front in the
I'm going to come back because he withdrew the next item, so he was. Thank you, Councillor. I'm sure the Director just gave you an update that it was moved, seconded and passed through unaugmented. So you're aware of that. Now the next item we had to have you back because you withdrew it. So that's item 16.1, opportunity to partner in the Australian Driverless Vehicle Initiative. So as is our tradition, just a brief reason why you withdrew it and if you want to move it.
I withdrew it because it's an awesome idea.
Then stand up to tell us how. I presume you want to move it then.
Yes,
please. Okay, tell us why you think it's so awesome.
It's one of those things where there's very little risk involved in the way that we might be involved as a supporting partner as opposed to a core partner, so there's no cost involved. There's a lot of national, global interest in this kind of stuff, and there's only a few local council entities who are on board as supporting partners. I think Onkaparinga is one, and there's other councils around Australia and lots of big businesses, research organisations. So I think it fits really well in the remit of being an intelligent city or a smart community. If we get in now, I think that we'll work out ways where this can be beneficial. If we leave it too late, then I think it could be a case of us too. So I think based on the assessment that there isn't a lot of risk involved, and it's probably a good thing, although we don't know exactly how good a thing it might be. We should get in now, and therefore I'd like to ask that people support it.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I think it sounds great initiative. And I was just reading an article about saying how parking and the way that we organise and manage our parking facilities in cities is going to have to change with these sorts of innovations that are going to happen. And so I think it's, you know, it's extremely low risk if we're a supporting partner, and yet we seem to get a whole lot of benefit out of taking part in this sport.
Thank you. Further speakers? Councillor
This is a really interesting one. It sounds great, but I definitely don't support it. And one of the reasons is there's no community consultation undertaken at all. In preparation of this report, we've got numerous schools in the area, and if anyone read the report the other day about driverless car choosing a child versus a tree, well, the kids on the road, sorry, you know. So I think it's, even though it sounds great, I think we need to walk before we can run. And I'm not scared of trying to be the first. That's not what it's about. We should be about sharing. So we're Adelaide's second smallest council, and I think we should be in the space where Adelaide City Council is, and we are in that inner metro area, and we're looking at electric vehicles, electric chargers. I think that's a really good space to be, because we can be supported in that program. So even though this is great, let someone else test it out in their neighbourhood. I think the risk is too high.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Evans and Stanford.
Yes, so I do support it, and if I understand right, probably just a question is that we're not talking about driverless vehicles jumping on the roads in Prospect. We're talking about providing statistics, data and analysis and general insights into neighbourhood traffic movements to help them form their algorithms. Is that right?
Through the chair, it's unclear really what we have to offer to the conversation at this juncture. There are local conditions that we think the ADVI might be interested in hearing about from us, and ultimately contributing to that conversation, so that when there is potentially a time when vehicles such as the one mentioned in the report in South Perth are ready to be trialled and tested on local roads in local communities, that the ADVI has some data, some analysis and obviously some community support and consultation behind it before that is rolled out. So getting on board at this stage is as Councillor Lala said, a really exciting prospect for council.
And so maybe just a supplementary one. So that means that through supporting this, we're not supporting cars coming onto the road, we're supporting being part of the conversation. Yeah.
Anything further, Councillor Stanley?
And I think I'll probably sum all that up by saying that this sort of technology is coming. It's not going to go away. BMW are currently working on this sort of stuff in their vehicles, like deciding whether it's a child or whether it's a lamppost. I was reading the other day that the BMW cars can now read the 25 limit road signs when they come up to a school sign, and they'll actually automatically just slow the car down when they go through a school sign. Yeah, which is quite interesting. So all this technology is coming, and I think we can put our heads in the sand and say we don't want to be a part of it, but I think it's far more exciting to actually be a part of the conversation really early in the piece and be understanding of what all this is going to be. I mean, we'll be, in theory, one of the few councils that will actually have all the information at a root level. So we'll be ahead of everyone else. So when it does come to our council meeting and says, oh, we've got driverless cars coming here, we'll go, yeah, we know about that. We've been a part of that for 5-10 years or whatever. So being a part of that conversation instead of technology, I think is going to be incredibly valuable. Whether we support the theory of what's going on probably is immaterial. It's going to happen anyway, and I think just being aware of what's going on is probably the most important thing, even if it's just an education point of view. I personally, this sort of technology I find is worrying in some respects, that it actually, a lot of these safety enhancements in cars can actually make drivers lazy. I think sometimes it makes them lesser drivers, but there's no doubting that it does have its place. So I fully support this. I look forward to seeing all the data that we get back from them and all the information we get back from them. And maybe it can start shaping our policy in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, I feel sorry when I don't support things of other councillors, but I'm not into this at the moment. If it was electric vehicles and things that I personally might not support, but I'm quite happy to go along with other people because I do see it a way of the future. But right now, I'm a great concern that we have a population in South Australia and elsewhere that we haven't got work for. We're trying to find work for, and so then we're trying to create vehicles that don't have human beings behind them. So right at this moment, it said electric, I'd support it. It says driverless, I don't. And I could have
we have an even number of councillors, so I don't think there's going to be a tie vote, but just in case there is, you may appreciate which way I'll vote. I'll be voting in favour of this item. I think there's a lot of water to go under this bridge. I'm very happy for us to be in a position of influence, and that's what I say we always are when we put our hand up for these things. We're not a passenger, no part of the fun. If we've got concerns about this, then getting on board is our chance to express those concerns. Got hopes and desires, then equally we should express the hopes and desires. I think we're well versed in smart technology. I think it's a great place for us to be able to not just talk about this sort of venture, but be actively involved. And I think the issues raised by the councillors who have expressed some concern are very real, very practical issues. Mind you, I don't understand why my car would worry about sitting between a child and a lamppost or a tree. I want them to stop for all three of them. Perhaps quicker for a child, perhaps, but I don't think I want to run into any of them. Equally, I think Councillor Stanton's right. Technology is already in vehicles to override, perhaps, what drivers are doing. And I wonder how long it will be before it's mandated that cars be manufactured with that technology, as they are with assisted braking and assisted steering under braking and several other safety controls. Airbags are now, if not mandated, then they're certain star rated, so you can easily see what they are. I worry about my old car is thought about whether I'll be able to drive the thing in a few years, because it won't have all of that technology on it. If I can, there's one little country road I'll be able to drive it on, that's all. The thing that intrigues me about this discussion is that when we talk about safety, and people wanting to increase safety to absolute limits so that no one can possibly ever get hurt. One thing that we all do every day, I think all of us, is drive a car. It's one of the most risky things that we do. That's because we are at the wheel and not in full control, and other people are at the wheel of their cars and not in full control. And I just think anything we can do to make that a safe exercise, given we're so addicted to personal transport, anything we can do to help in that regard would be appreciated. And I think automation is a sensible step, but I don't think we'll do it in any rush because we are so attuned to wanting to control where our own vehicles go. But I do think, as with other technology, it'll come at a time we accept it. I'm very pleased if we can be part of that discussion and highlight to them what matters to us in our community. Thank you. That doesn't conclude the debate yet. Councillor Larwood, did you wish to sum up?
Yes, thanks. Definitely take on board the concerns raised by elected members and also the good points raised by other people. So it's definitely not a simple debate, and we need to keep a cool head about it. I think we can have a chance to influence what happens far more easily by being involved as opposed to standing on the outside and looking in. I think there's this type of conversation kicks off all sorts of other conversations around sustainability, even around shaping how we design our cities to not require as many car parks, for example, because the availability of this mode of transport is commonplace in the future. So it's at the start of a very long journey, and I think it's definitely a good opportunity for us to play a role in shaping it and making it turn out how we want it to turn out.
Okay, that concludes the debate. All those in favour? All against? I don't need my casting vote. Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next item withdrawn was item 18.1, draft 30-year plan for Greater Adelaide 2016 update, response from City of Prospect. This document, the previous document greatly influenced where we're at right now. This document will still influence where we're at, but there's a detailed response. I just want to make sure everyone's content with what the staff have presented. So I want to seek your permission to suspend meeting procedures until, say, 9:15. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thus suspended. Nathan, I want to not talk us through it, we've all read it, but if you had any comments back from people and if they changed your thinking on what you put for us tonight.
Look, in a nutshell, very...
No, he does not need to stand.
I don't mean to say no to you. In a nutshell, very little feedback that caused us to reshape anything that was put in writing in the draft or discussed at the workshop. So I guess we take that as a general level of comfort. I'd be interested if there were any further specifics that we're looking to add, or maybe if there was a bit of an overarching statement, here I use the term sort of vibe, that we want to add to this that kind of sums up our position. That may be an interesting addition, and we could deal with that recommendation through.
Yep. So hopefully you had a chance to read through it. I read this stuff all the time because it's something that's sort of game, and I know a couple of you are interested in this stuff, but for others it might be pretty dry. Can I just have some feedback? Are people comfortable with what the staff prepared as a response on our behalf? We read as our response, not their response, by the way.
Look, I've had a read through it. I guess, the whole way along, it's actually the lack of detail that's the problem rather than what's there. So the overarching principles, I think, are in general not bad, but I think it's how that comes into be. Now, I don't know if we're getting a sneaky peek at the residential design code, because I think that would probably inform more about what it means. Obviously, I'm a champion of, where possible, of affordable housing, sensitive housing, respect for heritage. So anything that is best practice, I really want to see in there. there was, again, the note around, and this comes back to what we're discussing at the moment, the note around about the heritage value and tourism was good. And what's the other one I picked up? No, I printed out the wrong page. But yeah, so in principle, I agree with the comments the staff had made, but I was wondering if they could give an ETA until when we'll get to have a look at the design code, or that was the next stage after this has happened.
Yeah, so as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, the department are taking a very different approach. The first version of this they put out had quite specific targets in it, and that raised a whole pile of anxiety and undermined the broad principles they wanted to get in place. So people attacked the specifics without looking at the general. So it stripped the specifics out to have a better conversation about the general. And then they wanted to do area planning, regional and area then district. So scale it right down to what we would currently call DPAs, but a level above that. So look at the whole of the inner north, say how does this affect the inner north? And then how will it affect the DPAs that are within that? So there'll be another 2 layers below this that are much more specific. They haven't provided the detail, not because they're being secret squirrel about it, they're just saying get the principles right. In the rest of it, you'll know how to shape it. They want to do it the other way around, saying, oh, we've got some plan over here for this, and we'll just get this snuck through and then it'll all become obvious. They haven't done any of them. They don't have, I've met them, I've spoken to them. They don't have any of those. They actually want to have quite a collaborative approach about it.
One other thing I did notice, again, was the staff acknowledged the conflict between canopy cover and development. And I think that was a really good example of the petition we had earlier, of where that tree would have existed on a bigger block, and now a developer's come in and developed it. And I think, we've got to be really careful that we maintain canopy cover because, as with climate change and all the rest of it, you've got to create good amenity we don't want to lose the amenity that we've got, and our tree coverage is part of the reason why people move into the area. And you're seeing some of the developments and, there's no room for significant trees to grow. So we're getting, I'll call them insignificant trees because they don't have the space for root growth. And I think that's a real problem.
I can absolutely concur. That's my strongest comment here, is that there doesn't appear to be any reconciliation between housing diversity, read into it denser forms of housing. I don't have a problem with principle, but how does that reconcile with the desire for increased greenery, not just tree coverage? Because where's it going to grow? Put simply, apartment site, where is the spot for a tree on the apartment site? And if it's not on the apartment site, then whose job is it to plant the tree to meet the coverage, the greenery target? And to me it says developers can concrete the block, but councils have to plant more trees. It doesn't say that, but to me that seems to be where. So I think we should be quite strong in pushing back, saying there doesn't appear to be a reconciliation between how you achieve both. There's a real risk that we'll be the Bunnings left having to try and solve it somehow with our land.
But I think that's the exciting thing, is that they're actually considering things like Fonzie flats, which are on top of garages, dual occupancy, so you can actually maintain an existing house and perhaps ancillary dwellings or annexes. And I think that's a way where you can keep greenery and canopies and still increase density. So I think there needs to be figures in, let's call them, areas that have canopies already, that there should be no more than X% of a certain kind of development for increased density. So then you're not getting, a loss of some of that canopy space. So you can increase your density in other ways, not just building apartments.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Christina, then, Mark.
Yeah, and it's got really great things. I'm sure, it's sort of been our strategic plan about the greater housing choices. And but my dilemma is it's all very well having all these wonderful statements, but how do you convince the property developers to actually build these? You know, where is the incentive? Where is the incentive to do a lot of these things? A lot of these things we'd love to do, but, you know, walkable neighbourhoods, smarter travel, getting active, but we're sort of doing it with our own ratepayers' dollar. You know, so I know it's, you know, you can't exactly say, well, put money where your mouth is, but to me this is a dilemma in having all these wonderful policies and plans. Yeah, but show me the money.
Can I suggest that's best wrapped up by the observation that if you thought about carving up a paddock that formerly had sheep on it into a new neighbourhood, lots of those principles would influence how you laid out that new neighbourhood. Connectivity, linear parks, big parks in between, high density housing, all makes sense. But when you look at our area, and most of the inner metropolitan area, where you're overlaying increased density and providing more concrete, less grass, those principles don't apply, they're not relevant, are they? So I think that's another comment I think maybe we could perhaps reinforce, is that the healthier neighbourhood stuff resonates for new developments. But again, I don't think it's reconciled with how you retrofit that into existing neighbourhoods, where they want more diversity and more density. I think it's a powerful observation. Again, I don't have a problem with the principles of diversity and density, but how on earth do we achieve the things you just spoke about?
Yes. So, you know, what are the incentives that are going to be given, for example, to local government to help carry out these or the marketplace? And it's like examples that Lisbon Tree. Why couldn't they have designed, the Housing Trust, have designed their housing, you know, that maximised uses in the tree and didn't make it a danger to people and a nuisance?
All right. Mark?
Yeah, it's interesting. I really haven't read this in any detail, but some of the things I saw were sort of less car dependent. So I'm guessing that there's a need to sort of increase density, get more people in here, so we don't have to use our broad greenfield areas, and reduce the amount of time that people use cars, so they can use public transport and bikes and walk and things like that. The problem I have, in having to spend 2 weeks in somewhere where the public transport system actually works, where I felt odd using a car and very comfortable using public transport, and then come back to somewhere where I feel very comfortable using a car and very odd using public transport because there's none. And you look at the infrastructure that was put in place in somewhere like Tokyo, and I know that the critical mass is different, but they seem to put in the infrastructure and then the density arrives and the density works, rather than we seem to be doing the other way around. We want to put the density in there and then have to figure out what we're going to do with the infrastructure. And it seems to be asked backwards. And they talk about we want to become less car dependent. They want to do this, but they're not providing any options. And what the options that we have at the moment with our public transport just doesn't work. It doesn't work with this density. It's not going to work with the new density. And I find that they want it, but they don't know. They're not got any skin in the game to make it happen.
Oh, that's a good comment. Any others? Alan?
Just a couple. You made me think of that, and you look at, and lucky enough, sometimes being old is a good thing. If you go to Perth, when I first went there in the mining in the 60s and that, and there was nothing, it was all sand. And then they put a railway line, middle of nowhere, going down there. Then they built a road, middle of nowhere, around the edges. So by the time people come and build houses, there were railway lines and there were cars alongside the railway line, and it all fitted. You come down here to Main North Road or Churchill Road or Prospect Road or anyone, unless they listen to me and put the road on top of the train line where it should go, it's a bit late to be doing some of it without knocking things in. So these are great. apart from myself, it'd be great to see everyone walking around or catching a push bike and shooting here and all that. Our society doesn't do that and doesn't do it for a long time. So I think apart from new areas, in the older areas, which is us, the whole circle around the thing, some of this 30-year plan doesn't fit into it, to my way of thinking. I know more about that, the 3 trees that are in Iona Street, you know, and others. And those of you, and Mark will most probably be the only one at the moment, I live in Balfour Street, and now development planning people approved 2 little houses going on 1 block on the corner of Emily Street, and that's all right. More density, so just because they're only 6 inches apart, it's there. But you go there today when the house is nearly finished, and I think Greg was part of the solution, and I think it was a solution when I was, no you weren't, forget it, because it was when I wasn't again. We wanted a roundabout, we didn't get it, and compromise was reached with the people around the corner, no one else, just the people on the corner, Emily and Balfour, and so they made 3 new parking spots. They cut them into the curb and made them so cars could park on them, which helped to do the school. 550 students packed there. What do you do when you go there today? You look at the house, they've just finished the concrete driveway of one of the houses, and unless they got the smallest electric car I've ever seen in my life, that street tree's still right in the middle of their driveway. And if you want to go one little bit side, that special parking spot is there. You know, so some of these things, the drawings look beautiful, and our staff done good. You know, I'm not critical of those, but to put some things in reality is sometimes a bit hard.
That raises another point that as the housing diversity increases and there's less car parking, we've mentioned that, we think, I know there'll be more casual parking on streets. And if the streets are narrower, as it seems the intention is to get things, you know, tighter, or even if it's not narrower, but there's more driveways because there's more dwellings on the street, where do the trees go to fulfil the canopy objectives? So again, I think it's like these aspirations aren't reconciled with each other.
Sorry.
More driveways equals less tree opportunities. More on-street parking equals less tree opportunities. Higher density can potentially equal less tree opportunities. I think Alison probably provide a bit of a pathway through that. Granny flats, Fonzie flats, dual occupancy, those rules were softened. You could save a lot of back and front yards and have a good answer. But the plan seems to be we can get those things together.
I think we'll be having birch and trees.
Well, solar panel trees. Well, I know engineers on new houses. I don't know how many of you build a new house. Tell us, you would have got an engineer's report. Maybe you've read it. In that engineer's report, it will say if you plant a tree within 1.5 times its mature height from your house, we will not provide a warranty on your footings rate. So in new developments, people don't plant trees. The only people that plant trees are the size of the council. They technically are in breach of the engineer's recommendations. So, you know, there needs to be a way through this, and I don't think it's been thought out that well. Can I add another couple of things, Nathan, while you're typing? There's very little said about employment targets or issues for the inner metro area, or actually even the CBD. There's a lot about comments about employment lands. But if we're increasing population here, then presumably we have to increase jobs, otherwise we make people drive from their carless environment here to wherever the jobs are. Makes no sense. So hand in glove, there needs to be some way that jobs are thought about in the planning context in that plan. The other thing is we don't say much about the 6 key targets in our response. So we don't say anything. It's already in the principles. So it would be good to draw some of those comments up to comments about the targets. I think you did a bit tonight about some of those targets and their impacts. I think a comment on Principle 48, just a very technical one. It's missing some words. Just make a note of that. Just need like a last word to finish off.
What page are you on?
Principle 48 is in, I know you have to wait for it to find it. I'm just looking at my other notes from somewhere else. There's a couple of little, tiny little things. At the beginning of every chapter it says staff comments in the column, so I presume you'll take all of those out of there, because they should be our comments, shouldn't they?
Yeah, but my apologies. Initially we had a staff and went to paper comments and merged them, and a couple of the headings.
Okay, so you'll follow that up?
Yes.
Yep. And I only have one other little thing, that in the first chapter there's comments on the side that are numbered, that are referred to the comments on the principles, the numbers, and they're a little bit out of order. So just to tidy up some of the very small that I think the rest of the discussion, that's the notes I had, so it's great that people are all thinking the same page. Anything else people want to add about this, Alison?
Just one more thing in regards to shade and awnings. So verandas in the front of shops and providing shade. There's a few issues on our roads. I think Main North, I don't know, Churchill as well, because they're dicty roads. You can't put posts, I think. But I think certainly to encourage foot traffic along our roads, any opportunity that a business can put cover over. And I don't know if that's captured, because it might not be trees, but at least if it's shade.
I understand.
Walkable.
I understand what you're
But
saying.
again, that's the level of detail that's probably the next level of detail.
And the plan hasn't really gone there. There are a number of reasons why it's difficult, because it's someone else's land and it's outside the building site.
Can we take this? It will certainly be in the next layers down, no doubt. But can we ask or make a comment that is it the intention of the canopy cover to provide shade for cooling purposes, which a veranda would meet?
Greening.
Or is it greening which meets CO2 reduction? So could you have a place that's characterised by shady verandas but not many trees and still be happy? Or do you have to have both? Well, I think it's a good question to ask.
Well, certainly, from an amenity point of view and a street interaction point of view, you tend to see places where there's shelter, as a pedestrian or even using businesses or whatever the case may be. So if you can't provide a canopy by a tree, could you then be made by the assessment process to provide some sort of canopy or vine-covered arbour or something?
I think in Main Street it's a really interesting question.
But I think it's the post they have the issue with, because obviously they don't want cars, running into it.
It's not. But I just wonder, on a tricky day, would you be happy walking down a street full of trees with no verandas, or one with verandas and no trees? Anyway, the question is about, in the target about canopy coverage, is it about heat island effect, in which verandas would surely achieve that? Or is this some other thing? So we'll get in there. If there's nothing else, we'll call it back in. The recommendation is that Council's feedback on the draft 30-year plan update as presented in the attachment be adopted for submission. So we want to add some words as presented in attachment 28 to 45 as amended.
Yep.
And that as well. Whatever that was. Does that cover it? Good. Someone happy to move that way? Councillor Barnett, wish to speak to it?
No.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Thacker, wish to speak to it? Further debate? All those in favour? Against is carried. Thank you. Good discussion. Now the next one is withdrawn. 10.8 19.5, a report on the Digital Transformation Initiative on page 167. And drawn by Councillor Alison DeBacker. So just a brief reason why you withdrew it, Councillor, and then if you wish to move it.
Is the report on the digital transformation initiative? Yeah, just in regards to, I just wanted clarification. There was a mention in the report, I did write the page number down, no I didn't. It was in regards to intellectual property rights of, I guess, developing things. I'm certainly of the belief, if we're working with other councils, that we should, if it's public money, be publicly accessible where possible, Creative Commons. I just wondered, I was going to ask some questions to the people involved.
Thank you. Can I have an answer to the questions before I ask for a move? There's a suggestion that I suspend meeting proceedings. I understand some people want to make some comments. Is that correct? Councillor Larwood and Evans Way.
Sure.
Yes, in which case you may be able to address that matter. I just suspend meeting proceedings until 9:30. Was it voted? Against is carried. So there's a question there. Who's best placed to answer the question about IP?
I can answer that. So the IP that we talked about for this particular project is should belong to LGA and council. So this is the IP for having a report on the analysis of the booking facilities. So this is just part one. So that should belong. So LGA's, I guess the intent is they're giving us the funding, so that should be made available to all councils. That's exactly what it said. Yep. So that is the IP of this particular project. So should we have developed the actual project later on, and that is the part, the IP we haven't quite landed on yet. Whether is it a proprietor IP or is it council's IP, who is to run it? So that part we haven't quite landed at.
I think as part of us getting money out of these schemes, we have to make it available to the whole.
Correct. So the IP of this particular project, the 25,000 that we have received, it belongs to Cedar Prospect and LGA. So that report should be made available.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I've made some notes around the whole thing, and if it's okay in suspended meeting procedures, I might just do a bit of a blah, 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 and we wouldn't through that. IP certainly is an issue.
Should we make it more compelling than blah, blah, blah?
Indeed, I will, and Matt chime in and you might have some comments as well. Just to begin with though, thank you Ginny, and thank you George who's in the gallery as well, because this has been a really interesting project. Something that isn't normally on the map, and we've had nothing but support from both Ginny and George to pull this together, and from a local resourcing perspective I think that speaks volumes to the sense of collaboration that we have in council. So I'm deeply appreciative for that and for the efforts and for the support that you've given us. It's been a really interesting journey, and we might remember that a couple of months ago, 6 months ago probably, towards the end of last year, we were looking at what does this mean, this digital transformation working group, how will it come together, and there was a resolution that we did do something. So we're reporting back on what that something is and how it's progressed. There were participating councils that were involved in this, I guess, thought process as well. So Campbelltown, Adelaide, Charles Sturt, Mitcham, Unley and Burnside were all involved. And it was an interesting start in that we had a couple of meetings around what we're trying to achieve and how we're trying to get things rolling and what innovation looks like and what the future looks like, and some really interesting thought processes there around future orientation. As well, we also had the strong participation and collaboration of the Industry Association, the AIIA, that Matt's involved in as well. And that's been really fundamental to how we pulled this all together. That and with Brett Morris, who did a lot of this voluntarily as well. So he in the early stages was just interested in wanting to work with us as the former Chief Information Officer of the state government to find out how he could also engage and indeed help a venture like this to move forward. So what were we trying to achieve? And I think the report speaks to it, but I just wanted to outline it a little bit more through talking, was that there were a couple of different things we wanted to focus on, and our objectives were really to design council processes from a user's perspective. So if you think about the booking engine, which is the project that we're working on now, Cedar Prospect, it's all about currently what's the process? So it's where you've got to download a form, you've got to fill out a form, you've got to send that form in, and someone's got to look at it, review it, and get back to you. That's all with the process in mind. It's not with the user's experience in mind. So it's how do we, in the 21st century, create products and services and indeed support our residents and our community with the user being so central. How's it future-oriented? So how are we thinking about the future and how are these things adaptable and transformable? How is it using the best technology, so digital by default? And how is it disruptive as well? So how do we challenge the way we do it and say, well, is that the best way we do it, and can it indeed be done better? There were a range of project groups, and they're in the report, so I don't want to dwell on them too much, but perhaps just talking about what we've achieved in our working group, which was one of the three, and what this booking system looks like. And it speaks volumes, I think, to what we were trying to achieve at the beginning to the solution that we're now looking at, in that it's not your typical booking engine, and the technology is not the answer, in that a booking module isn't new technology. It's not something that's revolutionary. But what is new is the thought process of bringing multiple stakeholders together with the customer experience in mind through a deeper engagement process. So for the average person that's looking to organise a community event, they may not be thinking, gee, I want to use the Nailsworth Community Hall, I want to use the Prospect Town Hall. They might say, I'm looking for a hall that's got a capability of 150 people that's within the central northern region of Prospect. They say, fantastic, what's available on these dates? Your Airbnb experience. Once they've made that booking and secured that venue, they then might be prompted to say, buy things from the local shops that can also participate. And so we can stimulate economic development through this kind of a platform. Other community groups might have halls for hire, church halls and tennis clubs and things. So let them host their own halls and let them, generate a source of revenue through it as well. And through that process, the user now has a whole lot, deeper interaction and a more valuable experience than they did just through a booking module by themselves. So I guess just personally, I've got a lot out of this. It's been a hugely, interesting project to be involved in. It's been indeed a challenging project at times to work out a way forward. And the report that Brett Morris ended up putting together for us did talk about some of those challenges. And intellectual property is one of them. In the broader conversation around if this project in particular moves forward, well, what does that look like? Does it mean we've got to go off and build a booking platform? Does it mean we get others to build it for us? Does it mean that there's a clip the ticket process for businesses that want to be involved and a commission for other organisations that will list their halls? What does that commercial model look like? Who gets the revenue? Who bears the risk? Is it just council, or is it council and industry? Is it councils, or is it one council? And how does that process look moving forward? So the intellectual property one's a really interesting one in this case, because who ends up owning the platform may be very different to who ends up inspiring the initiative. Don't know. Equally, council may decide it has an appetite to want to invest in getting the whole thing. So that's for the future. That's me, Matt.
It's always dangerous to follow on from Talis because both speak so well and covers pretty much most of the bases. So just to echo what Talis said, thanks to Ginny and George for your contribution. I think the exciting thing for me, apart from what this could be as a platform which delivers lots and lots of benefit, this is just the thing which enables everything else, was the ability to position Prospect, as we know, relatively small compared to some of our neighbours, but right in the centre, right in the thick of this, and coming up with something that no one else has come up with to take this approach. And I think you could feel when we presented this at something at the Adelaide Town Hall, it was good. Kate was there, and Kate can say what it was to remind me because I've forgotten.
It was the Smart Cities Roundtable.
That's right, yeah. And several councils came up and said, why didn't we get it? We want to be part of this. You're doing it again. What's this all about? So I think it's as much about the concept of a platform as positioning ourselves as having the ability to lead where we otherwise might not be expected to was exciting. And to do something that's quite non-traditional in local government space, when people probably will say and have said at some point in time, why are you doing this? This is not about roads, rates and rubbish, which is a very important but quite a traditional view. And I think it's about one of the first things that Brett Morris did is he sat us down and he said, this is not an IT project, this is about the future, and this is about the future of your citizens and how are they going to engage with you as a local government entity in the future. What does local government look like in 20 years' time? Does it exist? Is it more important or is it less important? So he encouraged us to think about a change of model a scenario planning type approach. Freed everyone's minds up from thinking that this was just an IT project, and so that really got people thinking, what does local government look like? Where does it derive its revenue? A council like Prospect, incredibly dependent on private ratepayers to raise funds and those types of things like that. So we started to free up our thinking about, what might be possible in the future. So this is a good start, and I really hope that we can continue on with this. I see a lot of potential. Some of the interest that this inspired, not only amongst other council entities but also amongst the industry, was really encouraging to see as well. It's already had some ramifications on how people go about what they do and what they think they could do. So it's great to be at the forefront of that. That's pretty much it, I think.
I think it's pretty impressive. I can't remember the last time we got the money out of the Research and Development Fund, Jenny or Kate or anybody. Anyone got a memory of us getting? I think as a team, if nothing else, you've got a grant of $25,000 or something, which I think will add real value to the way people interact with halls. And there's a certain irony in that, because one of the most frustrating parts of our service to community is how we hire out our halls. And I reckon if we could crack that nut and develop a great new product that the whole sector can use, as well as other organisations, I think it's fabulous. So hats off to you. So
that's a good point. There's just something I forgot to.
Feel free to you can add it.
Not through the chair.
Carry on.
So the point that raises is that opens up the City of Prospect and our facilities, including our parks, to be accessible by so many more people who would have just significant issues with finding out what they can hire, when they can hire it, and what they can do with it. All of a sudden, whilst we're opening ourselves up, other councils are doing the same thing. We've got the whole of the metropolitan area potentially being able to come and do something, do more things in the City of Prospect. So wouldn't it be awesome if, in all the downtimes that various groups or the town hall or the community centre up at Dalanga isn't being used and isn't being booked, that it was jam-packed because it was easy to get access to it. You could be inducted online. You could go and organise something at St Helens Park, because the fair's not there anymore. Plenty of opportunities to host events there. And you could know that you could sort of book a bit of an area, but then you could get all the things that you want coming to you, as opposed to having to go and organise them yourself. And local businesses, capitalising on the benefit and expanding the products and services that they offer. I think it's one of those things which could really instigate some creative thinking amongst different stakeholders. So,
well, I go further. I think the parks could have a personality and be able to tell you when things are happening and what's going on this week, and when there's a working bee, and send a little note out saying, I need a bit of a rejuvenation, are you up for it? A list of friends, and there could be people interacting with our parks without there being any council officers needing to worry about it. And I think that would be a great outcome in some ways, that people feel that they can interact that way. And the 5 o'clock dog club, it'd be interesting if they became a subset of St Helens Park's kind of little site. We get a lot of fun with it. Chris?
Yeah, I think this is fantastic. Little did I know when I pitched to Moan, was it this election, about customer service, or what I perceived then as the lack thereof, and about how difficult it was to book our halls. We're still in a very antiquated and situation. And so now we've had so much value added to my little pitching moaning with this wonderful project. So my mind's blown away by where it's all led and the people involved. My hat goes off to you. Fantastic.
I concur with Christina, and it's not pitching, it's advocating, championing. So I think, the guys have done a fantastic job, and one of the biggest challenges, I think, is connecting with people outside of our council, because we're all facing the same issues and struggling with the same. They seem small, but they affect the community and can make things easier. So I'm very keen to see people just doing their own thing, using our facilities because we're paying for them anyway. We're servicing them anyway. So, but I'm really conscious of being where people are. So I think a really good example of that is even with our events, you know, starting with Network Prospects to use things like Eventbrite instead of sending a PDF attachment with an RSVP and a number and email where someone's not available. It does it all for you and it's free. So I really hope that whatever we're developing talks to those kind of applications, and that might be a sort of play, because I guess you want to tie up those two things together. That's just what I commented.
You can see how that can play out by interfacing with Eventbrite if someone's, even if it's a private invite only function, if they can use that as the way that they distribute it, you know, would you like to create a...
Maybe have the three main providers of services, Meetup and Eventbrite. So you're already in the space where people are, and then that talks to each other.
It's a gateway for money as well. So, yeah, it wouldn't work with our parks, but it certainly work with other people's halls and here. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great suggestion. And in fact, I think the digital
planning session this afternoon.
Oh, the NBN session this afternoon was recorded on Eventbrite.
I'm not sure where that was captured, but I know that Alison Prospect is starting to roll that out via Eventbrite. That's been tested on some of our other events as well, and now we'll see the value that adds to it and the efficiency as well.
Certainly our Art Deco events now are all online. I don't think it's Eventbrite, it's some other ticketing thing. And we no longer need to worry about who's going to turn up. If there's rain or some calamitous event, we've got all their email addresses to tell them it's starting later or it's cancelled. They've all paid up front, so they don't have to worry about collecting money on the day, nor do we have to worry about people not turning up, because if they don't turn up, that's their problem, they've already paid. So it's transformed the way that we conduct business on our walking tours. Very simple part of the world. But it means you don't have to drag our whole pile of infrastructure at the start of the talk and put it all away again before we go and walk. Like, it's all done. It's all done. So it's
instant database for future.
And thank you very much to be. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, these little things can be quite transformative. So I feel like we've had a big fundraiser for an expedition and we're just sort of ready to launch the boat. So good luck with the journey. I know many over and a lot of hard work to go, but I think it's worked really well, and I kind of like the way that we've given the four of you really good encouragement to go off and solve something. I don't think we've got any parameters around what it would be that you solve. Come back to something that makes a lot of sense. And I think the best thing we can do now is to get out of your way again. Come back to us when you need us. There's a great deal of energy and thought, good people around it, so good luck. Righty, I'm going to bring us back to the formal session. There's a recommendation there on 19.5 on page 167. Note the report, as we continue to support it, that will support the grant funding analysis, and we make an adjustment to our budget to reflect the receipt of the R&D money and the project costs that include. If you wish to move that way, I'm happy to take two councillors, or happy to take other people so that you're not the two that move. Either way.
Matt, you move it.
Councillor Evans said his hand up first. With respect to any further, Councillor?
Oh, okay.
Councillor Larwood, you want to second it?
I will second it, yeah.
Any further?
Just to note your promise to get out of the way and let us get on with it.
Any further debate? All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Next item is the Council Diary, Club 5082, back on 28th of October. Outskirts is the next event at the Prospect Gallery on the 30th of October, right through to 20th of November. Diwali Festival, one of our funding recipients, that it's incorrect in the agenda papers, but it will be correct in minutes and all the other promotions at St Helens Park. There's apparently got a massive gap there now we need to fill, so we'll fill it every day outside of March, but we'll do it. From 2 till 8 p.m. Too late, that's right. I think there's some official stuff. I've been invited to be there at 5 p.m, so if you're interested in kind of the recognition and stuff from the organisers and the ability to say thanks, it'll be from about 5.
What, an hour after it's shut?
Till 8.
I thought it said 11 till 4.
Yeah, it does, but that's wrong. It's 2 till 8. Okay. Yeah, Danny, wasn't your mistake, that one. There's the papers mistake.
Right, because we've told all the carers.
So it goes through to 8. Really important it goes through to 8 because it's a festival of light, amongst other things, and hopefully there'll be some fireworks or some other kind of stuff that's lit up. So I'm really excited about this. Roshana, my inside agent into the Indian community, assures me that this is the big event that was at the OG Oval, whatever, the Clemsey Oval last year. So this is the Federation's premier event. It's not the only Diwali or the Diwali event. It was one last night or whatever, a couple of nights ago.
Sunday night, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, Sunday night, that's right. Outside the southern end of the Oval, at that Oval. So there's a few communities that put on these events, and Roshana was telling me that she's going away every weekend, so it's great for her. This is the Federation's event, so they're expecting a lot of people there, so it should be, I'm hoping it's amazing.
So out of interest, like Sunday night's one, has it got fireworks?
We're not aware of that. Would they need to tell us? They would.
Next day.
So he'll be chasing it up tomorrow.
That's why they got knocked back, and I don't think they should be knocked back, but
one of them got.
And then I heard the one Sunday night, because that brings the ducks.
That was the one.
Yeah.
So that was the relocated one.
Right.
So anyway.
I got fireworks I can lend them, I suppose.
Lend them.
I look forward to it, and it is part of the new process about us opening up grant funding to event providers. So we had the AMAGO one on the weekend, we've seen the quiddle of that, and this is the other one, so it's good to have them both close together and really encourage the staff to bring back a report to maybe even December about how those two events went in that new process. So it just gives us much more scope. But let's make sure it works. Then the other one, 8 nights of summer, the next one is the 11th of November, which unfortunately I can't get, but I heard the last one was fantastic. So.
But I had 2 problems.
Sorry, Councillor, question?
2 problems on the, I think I'm standing, aren't I?
Not yet, you are now.
Two problems. One, the poor bloke running his own bar, that was pretty exciting until after about 3/4 of an hour, and they were lined up in the street and he wasn't doing too good. But particularly the food that on the brochure that we got said variety, I can't think of the exact words, but multiple variety of street foods. There was one, and I think run out within the hour. So I'm just hoping the next one, that whoever's organising it can try and have a complete success, but go more than 1 hour.
Is Chibo not open after 5 o'clock? No.
It sounded to me like the arrival of the trams, you know, the trams that we never wanted. The air conditioning couldn't cope because so many people were on the trams that no one wanted. It seemed the event was overwhelmed beyond what was expected, and running out of stuff's kind of good, kind of embarrassing. So I know that people aware of it will deal with it, but equally we've got to find a nice balance between how do we stimulate stuff happening in the street without taking business off all the other people. So I understood people who actually went into Chibo, stayed open longer, they went across to a sale. Yeah, it ended up being quite an interesting answer to that dilemma. Okay, general business. Are there any items of general business? We have the one foreshadowed before, and another one.
No.
So Councillor Evans previously moved and is now moving in general business. Councillor undertake to review the register of significant regulated trees, particular reference to the gum tree. It is a gum tree.
Yep.
More specifically, we get more trouble we get into. Gum tree at 3 Iona during the relevant development plan amendment process.
Is it 3 Iona or is it 2 Iona?
No, it's 3, but there's 2 housing trusts, and one's number 1 and one's number 2.
Oh, is that why it says number 2 on the front?
Yeah.
Right.
For the property.
Councillor Evans, are you happy with your motion?
if we, and I'm prepared to take advice, if we think that is the spirit of what needs to be said to reflect what was discussed, great. Otherwise, happy to take any advice if there would be more appropriate words.
Just ask the director that question.
I'm thinking more in reference to that development plan amendment process, whether that's the right terminology.
Through the chair, very happy with the reference to relevant development plan amendment. Its name could change, so we don't want to get caught up on that, and I think it does capture the spirit.
Okay, thank you. As a mover, do you wish to speak to any further?
That's okay.
Second it. Councillor Harris, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I think it's quite good to get on the table quite a few of these trees around the city, and more, in my opinion, to keep them upright, but it gets it on the table.
Thank you. Any further debate? No, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. Is there another item of general business?
Oh, I had one.
Councillor Harris, next I'll come back to you.
Yes, I haven't written out a thing because might not need to, but I went on Saturday, Councillor Groot that's not here, and the director for people around the street corner regards car parking and all that sort of stuff. And you had a hard task, but such is life, you have big shoulders. The concern I had also come from the Broadview Oval, where people approached me, and there was people there and people abroad that said, you know, we've contacted the council and haven't got a reply. There's a couple of ladies said it and a few other people and that. So it seems to be a bit of a thing. So I'm not really calling for a report. I'm really trying to just raise it that whoever's, because it's a whole different lot of areas. One was about a veggie garden at Broadview Oval, and then there was another one about a hole, and then this one sort of came up with a couple of people raising it. So I'm only raising it that perhaps as we now haven't got the champions and things will come to council things to again have a look at communications from residents to ourselves.
Well, that certainly doesn't fit with our expectations, does it?
No, it was a long way away.
So, CEO, you've made some notes. Yep. Contact Councillor Harris in more detail if you need. Thank you. Councillor, anything to do with Councillor Harris?
No.
Councillor Evans did have another one here that I wasn't aware of, but it's already typed up. Councillor Evans, over to you.
So do I need to read this out or can I just talk to it?
Technically, you don't need to read it out.
So what I'm trying to do here is just to stimulate some conversation around how we could produce our agendas and our workshop agendas, but it's our council meeting agendas and our workshop agendas. It could be that we don't change anything. It could be that we change a lot, or it could be that we adopt a model like City of Sydney, and I think Councillor Barnett, you mentioned City of Melbourne as well do it, where they've just got a page online. Either way, you know, more and more people are accessing our reports electronically, more and more people have these sorts of devices around them. The objective with doing this isn't to reduce public access, it's to increase public access. So it's all about how do we make the things we're talking about easier for our community to find at their fingertips, and how do we maximise digital advantage. So we see a lot of the way reports are produced these days is in an interactive online format. Maybe that's going to be too expensive for us to do. Maybe it is a case of, you know, the City of Sydney model is appropriate, or maybe it's too hard to do altogether. Don't know, but it's probably good that we take a look at it and we see what we can do, if we can do anything, and that we receive a report that advises us if there is a better way we could, you know, I guess disseminate the information around our agendas.
Thank you, Councillor. While you're on your feet, which you will soon be in a second, the second sentence I'm advised is justifications not actually required in the motion. It may not serve a purpose in that sense, but I do think it would be worthwhile adding in S in brackets after the word format.
Sure. Yep.
Because there might be lots of ways. Format brackets S here they get thanks. Just to free up that potential. And I recommend you don't need the second sentence, but it's your.
I guess the second sentence would provide some more, you know, spirit towards the objectives that I'm trying to achieve. But if we don't think it's required, I guess the fact that we've talked about it's probably enough to remove it. So maybe just take that advice.
Yep. start setting up with that. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, seconder?
Yes, I'd definitely like to second that because, again, you know, I do get annoyed when we get a PDF. I go to browser and it goes through and it's too big, it's 2 megabytes. And so it means I've got to save this, you know, jolly PDF format when really all I wanted to do first was actually read it and find out what the hell it's about. So I would love to have something like this, like the City Melbourne, Sydney having their formatting. And I do get complaints from time to time from members of the public, you know, who have the same aggravations, so to speak, and some of them haven't got the, you know, perhaps more the same level of access that perhaps, you know, my husband and I, and we've got like a council, so their memory is even, you know, low, so they really do get frustrated. So yeah, I would really look forward to this report.
Yeah, thank you. It's hard to believe that some communities don't have access to fibre to the premises NBN. In state aid. Any further debate on this one? No, that's been the case. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's carried. Any further general business? Councillor Stanley.
Yeah, an interesting one. I attended the wonderful Anime Go festival we had here over the weekend, and went to buy some food at one of the stalls and realised that I probably needed some cash. So I actually went walking out up and down Prospect Road and the wonderful village heart here, and found it pretty difficult to find an ATM. The one I did find over the road here has got a dirty great big auction sign on the front of the premises. I'm just wondering, is that the only one we've got, and is that going to disappear? Does anybody have any?
Coles. Yeah.
No, I didn't get that far. I kind of walked up that way to the cinema and came back this way. It was just something I picked up over the weekend.
I think on the
Good question. I might put that question to the acting director of all things economic. You're aware of the issue? Have you done any work on where the alternatives are? Should Bank SA go? Not Bank, no. Bank SA go.
Going, mate.
Apparently I am.
Through the chair, we haven't undertaken any research into where future ATMs could be located. Our immediate priority has been investigating the options for our events. So when we do attract a number of people to the area, what do we do in that respect? We're looking at the technologies that are available to vendors to use either through a smartphone or through alternate hireable devices that you can now get these days. So working with the vendors themselves. So no work has been done on where future ATMs may be located within the village heart. Generally, supply follows demand in that respect.
Perhaps want to take a notice though.
Yeah, interesting. I hadn't even thought about it before. Maybe there's an opportunity. I probably should put a motion together at some stage. Maybe there's an opportunity to actually, I know that there's private ATMs that you can have located freestanding. Maybe there's an opportunity to have one in Vine Plaza freestanding.
Okay, thank you. It has been raised, and I think you're quite right, we're at risk of having just one for the street, other than what's in the service station, I think, and EFTPOS.
Which is miles away, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a long way away, yeah. Foodland, maybe, Coles, maybe EFTPOS. I don't know, I don't use EFTPOS. I use cash. Anyway, so any further items of general business? No? Anything of an urgent nature? No? Good. We'll move over then to confidential items. Item 23.1, order to exclude regarding the report of the Audit Committee on the 13th of October, 14.2, form of external financial auditor for the period 2017 to 2021. Just the order to exclude. Thank you, members of the gallery. Excellent, thank you. I think that's it, isn't it? It's the last item. Meeting is closed.